Since the dawn of fantasy, one thing has remained the same. So you don't actually have to have goblins in your fantasy show. That was just a bit to try to set up the rest of this episode. I've really struggled with the script on this one. I'm currently working with a very small team of 3 people. It used to be 2 people. See how fast we're growing in power? Before long, the entire world will be ours. Catherine, Sophia, and yours truly are those 3 people. So we're working to try to make an animated show inspired by Lord of the Rings, AOT, and many, many more pieces of media. The setting is going to be very fantasy-based, D&D based, so that means there's one extremely important rite of passage for us to check off our list. Goblins. In many pieces of fantasy media, one of the most consistent villains to face is the goblin. But we didn't want to just do a normal goblin, we wanted to give our own spin on the concept. So, join us on the process as we take you from concept to design to the completed 3D model.
Part 1. Concept.
That's cool. We are approaching our goblin more like a very, very intelligent animal rather than a monster. They stand at around 4 feet tall and have a tail. Towards the end of their tail is a large barb that injects deadly venom into its victim. It has gecko-like hairs on its hands, allowing it to stick to most surfaces, and an ability to turn invisible through its natural camouflage. It has large ears, an incredible sense of smell, and a long chameleon-like tongue, and frills coming out the back of its neck that glow different colors based on what it's feeling. Goblins tend to live in packs led by an alpha. This alpha is chosen based on which of the goblins are the strongest. They have a level system allowing them to gain more abilities based on how strong they are. The higher the level of goblin, the more formidable. You'll learn more about the leveling system in the next episode. Not all goblins live uncivilized or are automatically evil in our universe either. There will be good and bad goblins in the show, and smart and stupid ones too. Moving on!
Part 2. Design.
When I started working on this show, I was very little. I don't remember specifically how old I was. Back then, it was a superhero show set in the future. It's very interesting to see how the show has changed shape since back then. One of those superheroes was this guy. He arrived at a crashed satellite carrying the DNA of many different animals. The radiation or something turned him into a combination of all those animals, and this is where the original design we have comes from. I wanted to use this design still because after all this time, I really like it. So I did a crappy redraw of it and added a bit more goblin and gecko to it, and then sent it over to Sophia.
Part 3. 3D modeling.
Catherine and I really started trying to make this show happen back in 2020. We've been really good buddies for a long time, and we went to Taekwondo together. That's just a fun fact. It's mainly just been the 2 of us on this project so far, but in the past few months, we added Sophia. Sophia is an extremely talented 3D artist who will be 3D modeling all the characters for our show. So the first thing she did was sculpt the model. Sculpting is the process of blocking out the basic shapes of a 3D model, just like sculpting clay. It tends to be very messy and loose because the whole refining part of the process comes later. This is where a lot of the back and forth notes happen for the overall shapes of the model. I sent back this picture where I just used the little Discord dry thing, and I just was like, hey, can you make his head look a little bit more like this? And she was like, yes. And then she did it. Retopology. Sculpting is messy, so retopology has to be the one to clean it up. I'm retopology, and I do all the work around here. I mean, I really feel like you're really just neglecting your responsibilities. Retopology is the process of 3D modeling good geometry over top of messy geometry. This is important for all of the next stages, and especially for my poor computer's sake. The less polygons, the better, dang it. He's got a 1050 Ti, and he's just doing his best. Shading. Shading is all about taking the bunch of gray blobs of nothingness and making its surface interact with light and the camera in a certain way. You can change how reflective a model is, turn it to metal, give it surface imperfections, make it really bumpy. There's so many options and so many different paths you could take at this step to really make something fit your style. For the shading part of this specific model, Sophia used a plugin called Advanced Toon Shader version 1.1. This specific shader is really handy for the style we're going for, which is very similar to Spider-Verse and Arcane, but just a budget version. Rigging! So you got a shaded model, but no way to move it. Well, that's just not gonna do, buddy. With no way to move it, there's no way to animate it. What are we even doing here? You're supposed to be here to animate. What are we even doing? Is this a standstill show, my friend? Rigging a character is basically like building it a skeleton, then telling the skeleton what parts of the 3D model it's in charge of throughout the process, called weight painting. The blue areas in weight painting mean the bone has 0 influence over the mesh, I think, if I'm remembering that correctly. And the red parts mean it has full influence. There's a lot more to the delicacies of making a successful rig, but we can cover that in a future video, maybe. We'll see. Shape keys! Finally! Shape keys! Shape keys are for animations that wouldn't work well in a rig. I use them for animating my eyes in this character. To do this, you need a base model, then you need to add a shape key and add another shape key, then go to edit mode and model the shape you want the model to be in next. Exit out, and now this slider should serve to transition that process back and forth. Using keyframes, we can kind of move those back and forth and make animation. That's the whole thing we're doing. That's beautiful. This is fantastic. On the Goblins, Sophia did a bunch of facial expressions and movements, so I will have a bunch of options for animating. After all of that, it's time to fully unveil the finished Goblin character. Behold him! This whole process has made me incredibly grateful for the team that we're building. Sophia has put hour after hour into not only this 3D model, but the next couple we've been working on. I cannot wait to see where our team goes next. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm currently knee-deep in a giant world-building magic system, combat system doc, and I can't wait to unveil that to you guys in a future video. There's so much work to be done, but we are really moving along. Thank you guys so much for your patience with these devlogs. They're a ton of work, but they're also a ton of fun to make. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.